Your life.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Free Assange Vigil live from Washington, D.C. My name is Steve Boykin, and I am joined tonight by Andrew Smith and Kendra Christian. And we've got a breakdown of day one of the show trial and broad daylight kidnapping of Julian Assange that people are passing off as an extradition hearing. And we're going to talk about what we were up to today at the Lincoln Memorial. But before we do that, let's run down our numbers. Today is 3,561 days of illegal and arbitrary detention for Julian Assange, 515 days since the WikiLeaks founder was trafficked from the Ecuadorian embassy after being sold to the United Kingdom for a $4.2 billion IMF loan. This is normally the part where we would tell you how many days Julian has been held without rearrest since the superseding indictment was issued by Donald Trump and Bill Barr's Justice Department. Um, but the moment he went to court today, he was rearrested. So we'll get into that. This is day one of the hearings, and let's see, 1,193 days of incarceration for Reality Winner, and 176 days of freedom on the plus side for Chelsea Manning. So at this moment, Andrew is typing away to put out the call to action for tomorrow. If you remember, like God, it was just like 2 days ago. We read over an email that Action for Assange got from Her Majesty's Prison, what, Customer Service Investigations or something like that, uh, crediting Action for Assange's call to action to provide video cloud access feed for overseas journalists, people who couldn't attend the hearing in person because of extremely limited seating, and also NGOs like Rebecca Vincent and Reporters Without Borders, and Amnesty International, and other groups of the like. And we found out very early on, before the first witness was able to get done testifying, that the cloud feed had been lost and never restored. So, you want to talk about that real quick, there,
Yeah.
buds?
So there was actually three major instances of the cloud video platform, one of the cloud video platform going down, and two of a witness actually not being able to properly and fully testify before court because of issues with whatever video conference software they were using internally. It was Mark Feldstein who was initially trying to connect. There was issues with the audio, and it delayed the court proceedings. These proceedings are literally the most important court trial happening within the last decade, if not longer than that. And the fact that the UK court system can't allow a witness to properly connect is disgusting. On top of that, after he was testifying and giving the most brilliant summation of the bullshit of this case, literally outlining how no publisher had ever been punished under the Espionage Act, laying out how this, as a first case, would lay a precedent for all publishers to be able to be victims under the Espionage Act, and how it destroys journalism completely. And I think it was after somewhere between like 3 to 6 questions, his video link again starts experiencing these technical issues, and the court proceedings again get delayed because of the incompetence of the British court system to maintain a proper channel for this to come through. On top of that, we found out that the cloud video platform that all of us in this community worked so hard to ensure existed failed. The parliamentarians and the NGOs were unable to finish watching the court proceedings of the day because of a technical issue that happened with the cloud video platform that we demanded and we got put in place. So this call to action for today is to address those issues specifically, again with the same complaint lines, as well as the correspondence administration services line that contacted us. So I'm literally finishing typing this, and I'm going to put it up on the website here in just a minute, and I'll put the link into chat for everybody. But we need to get this moving and circulating as fast as we can, because this can't be allowed to happen for a second day. This is the most important court trial in modern human history, and it cannot go and proceed in the dark. It cannot happen with witnesses disconnecting, and it's up to us as a community to apply pressure to these people that is necessary for us to be able to do this. So I'm finishing this up, probably like 2 minutes away from being done with it. But on top of that, we also have a call to action in conjunction with Reporters Without Borders for contacting congressional candidates. That link is down in the description. And I'd recommend everyone please get involved with that if you haven't already sent those emails out. I put it out at about 4:30 this morning before I got 2 hours of sleep before getting up to continue. So I'm going to update it later this evening with another list of congressional candidates and potentially office holders. I went through every single libertarian candidate from the East Coast and picked out the federal congressional races, House and Senate, as well as brand new Congress and Justice Democrats. And so please send them an email. What we're doing is working with Reporters Without Borders to try to get the U.S. Congress to amend the Espionage Act specifically to allow for a public interest defense and for it not to be able to be used against journalists as well as whistleblowers. And on top of that, in that same document, Reporters Without Borders is, in so many words, demanding an open national dialogue about what has happened to our free press and how it has been destroyed in such a way. So if you can get involved with that, that would be absolutely awesome. Hopefully before midnight tonight, I can add another list, but it'll definitely be before I go to bed this evening. I will indicate which ones are archived from the previous days. And this, every single day, I'm going to be putting on more congressional candidates and more congressional candidates. And once we run out, we'll move to another set of people. So please get involved with this. Please stay involved with this. The Reporters Without Borders is going to be an ongoing action throughout the whole process of Julian's trial and maybe beyond.
Well, and that was another thing today too, right? Didn't they not take the Reporters Without Borders petition? Did they put together? Yeah. That
Rebecca Vincent and Stella Morris personally delivered to number 10 Downing Street, where the Prime Minister, Beaker from the Muppets, I think, but with like a little bit blonder hair. Bojo. He really serious. Like, I understand that people in the UK call each other Muppets from time to time, but like this, he really looks like a Muppet. It's just
the funniest
fucking
part
cartoon
is if you picture him as a puppet, like,
yeah,
it's literally what it's doing.
Yeah. So, our good friend Tarek Haddad has a post up on, I believe it's his personal blog and not Watchdog. But we're gonna go through it a little bit here, and I'm sorry about the massive lean in. I think a wireless mouse is going to be on our.
It's inside in the electronics box.
Right. So I mean, it might help.
Probably.
Anywho, let's dive right into Tarek's article, because what happened today is just, it's so goddamn maddening on every single possible level. To start with, the Old Bailey had constructed a fishbowl like the one that he had to sit in Westminster Magistrates Court back in February. So they constructed the human zoo for Julian Assange because it didn't exist there prior to this. He was, again, it took like 5 hours to move him across the hall and then down the road. Strip searched, was subject to prolonged waiting times in different rooms by himself with no communication whatsoever. Today was the first time in 6 months he'd seen his lawyers, for fuck's sake. So, jumping into Tarek's article, Glaring irregularities in the application of justice were on display yet again as Julian Assange's extradition proceedings moved to London's Central Criminal Court on Monday. Lawyers for the WikiLeaks publisher argued that the U.S. Department of Justice filing of an updated and superseding indictment on July 29th, which came 2 days after the lawyers' deadline to submit skeleton arguments, constituted an unfair abuse of process that they had not given them or their client sufficient time to prepare. They formally asked for the new matters to be withheld. I am going to give everyone a guess as to what Judge Vanessa Baraster, the concierge for the U.S. State Department, had to say about that. You have no. I want you to take a guess, but you can absolutely keep reading.
Sorry, everybody. I had 3 hours of sleep, which might have been the most in the house.
I had about an hour and 45 minutes of broken sleep. I started doing the heat transfer iron-ons for the vinyl on the shirts and stuff like that. I started at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and it was about 20 till 7 when I was like, fuck it, I gotta get a nap in. And by 8:30, I was back up and pouring coffee down my gullet.
Right.
But yeah, by all means.
Where are we?
Mark Summers.
Mark Summers, QC, representing Assange, told the court that introducing a new indictment at the 11th hour was both extraordinary and abnormal. The district judge, Vanessa Baraster, ruled in favor of the prosecution, allowing the superseding indictment to stand as is. Following the ruling, Summers made a further application to delay the hearings until January 2021, telling the court it would be an impossible task for the defense to deal with these fresh allegations in any meaningful way without the delay.
Neat.
Excuse me. But Baraster again sided with prosecution lawyers, insisting that proceedings go ahead as scheduled for the coming 3 to 4 weeks. The ruling came although Assange himself was yet to see the new allegations leveled against him. It had only seen his lawyers for the first time in 6 months earlier in the day. Edward Fitzgerald, QC, also representing Assange, told the court how access to their client was limited to whenever the publisher could access the payphone in HMP Belmarsh, with lawyers scrambling around a mobile phone to try and hear the conversation.
I mean, on its face, weird. Okay. Anywho.
Real quick, the call to action is up, and I put the link in chat. I just want to throw that out there.
Baraster's ruling stood in firm contrast to her handling of the new U.S. indictment, a new 49-page document that radically alters the timeframes of the alleged wrongdoing and that had introduced previously unmentioned conduct that Assange is alleged to have perpetrated. The indictment was accepted without challenge or condemnation, and Assange himself was discharged and rearrested earlier in the morning's proceedings so that the new U.S. extradition request could immediately take effect. That followed previous accusations of impropriety and partiality after Baraster was seen to be reading off a pre-prepared statement on a ruling that also went against Assange, although lawyers had only just finished deliberating the point in question. I have lost count of how many times this judge has come into court with pre-prepared statements and still had to let the lawyers act it out in front of, I don't know, a couple of people.
The answer to that
All of them?
All of them. Every time he has been in court, there's been a pre-prepared statement waiting for it to be read. And when it first started, we had Tarek on with us, and we talked about it, and he said, well, the judge could change her mind based on the argument, blah, blah, blah. But at this point, I
think that was Mo.
It is beyond irreprehensible that there is pre-prepared statements at all. This judge at least should have the mental capacity to think about what to say and make a statement of their own, and not just read pre-prepared statements by the Department of Justice.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Yeah. And we should be able to hear what's going on, from quite a few different people who are wanting to listen and have their own perspectives of things and share with us what's happening in the hearing.
Absolutely. I'm going to jump back into this though.
Yeah.
It also followed Barrester's refusal to address a number of other abuse of process violations, such as the ongoing spying on Assange's meetings with his legal team while in the Ecuadorian embassy in London, a fact in itself that would be sufficient to throw out any other legal proceedings. Nonetheless, the hearings continue. Assange will be presented at the Old Bailey again on Tuesday, remaining as a silent observer in the glass dock of courtroom 10.
And if everyone remembers the Craig Murray article that we read a couple weeks ago, that he put out a couple months ago, outlines how, according to the European Court of Human Rights, the glass box is an instrument of torture in and of itself. So while all these proceedings are going on, this man is being tortured live in court. And I don't think that could be overstated enough. And I don't think it's being stated enough that even when there is this lifting where he is allowed to be in the courtroom and he's out of his cell, he is still being tortured.
Josh, if you could cue up the DEA Twitter post with Kristen Crampson talking about this exact thing.
All right, I'm playing.
Day of disappointment here. Of course, this morning the lawyers for Julian tried to get the items dismissed that was sneaked into the extradition request at a very late stage. That was denied by the magistrate, which was of course of grave concern, given the fact that Julian has barely seen the documents pertaining to those new issues. But that was denied, and Julian's lawyers then, of course, were forced to ask for adjournment, so he could actually, that is Julian, could actually familiarize himself with the facts of the matter and prepare for his defense, and for the lawyers as well. I mean, let's face it, the Americans have had 10 years to prepare this case. Julian's lawyers have been working for a year on the old second superseding indictment. Throwing this in at the last minute now is an absolute insult to the UK courts and to Julian and to justice. Now, when Barreto then denies the request to adjourn, so Julian and his lawyers get ample time to prepare, that is denying him of all his rights to defend for his life. That is a gross violation, and it needs to be addressed upon appeal and on every level that can be found. This is no justice. This is no justice at all.
He's absolutely right. And when nobody's there to observe it, or if only like a handful of people are there to observe it, it is more, or like it may as well be being held in secret.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a demonstration of just how many human rights the Five Eyes nations will abuse in order to make an example out of a journalist and publisher, to show anyone else who would dare tell the truth what's coming to them. That's what this amounts to.
And it's just that, that continued loop of, it almost sounds so absurd when you talk to people about it, even on the street. 6 months, he hasn't, people, how something hasn't been done, and they've tried, and it's, oh no, it's the prison's fault. Oh no, I have no power here. Oh, I have no power here. And just that continued,
well,
punishment.
Let's get into that a little bit too, because individually, we each spoke to anywhere from like a half dozen to 40 or 50 passersby who just happened to be at the Lincoln Memorial today because it's Labor Day. And we all had entirely different experiences talking to people, except for the vast majority of them were incredibly positive. There were young people coming up who were like, yo, I don't want to sound rude. Who is Assange and why does he need to be free? And these are like,
High school age
yeah, I would
kids.
put them at high school age kids. And it was fucking awesome.
One of the coolest things that happened during that whole time, and it was a little frightening at first just because fuck intelligence communities, but we were sitting there in the tent, and there was like 15 people on bikes just started circling around the tent. And it was at first like, what the fuck? And then you realize these are all like just young kids probably out riding their bikes together. That van again. So all these young kids out just riding their bikes together. And they circle around us like 2-3 times and then just ride off and park on the other side of the Lincoln Memorial, probably 40 feet away from us because we were like smack dab in the middle of the plaza. So I just grab a handful of stickers and a couple of cards that we had, and I just walk over there and start talking to them. Most of them didn't even know who Julian Assange was. So it was a really cool way to get 15 minutes that these kids, these high school age, learning that the world is fucked kids, had a chance to learn something that they're not getting out of public education, which is truthful, accurate information about the world that they live in. And that was just one example. There was another one where, and this is just talking about the interactions with like high school age kids, where there was a girl that came up and she had a couple younger brothers and sisters with her. And I don't find it inherently appropriate to use the strongest of language like you would use with an adult in regards to this, and using legal terms most kids won't understand. So I broke it down in such a way that I explained what extradition was without having to use the words. And I more or less told her that Julian Assange is a journalist that ran a website that exposed corruption. And the United States paid $4.2 billion to purchase him from the nation of Ecuador and transfer him into a United Kingdom's prison. And if the hearings that he's facing are allowing him or come to the point that he is allowed to be sent to the United States, we lose everything we have known to understand as the First Amendment. And this 14, 15-year-old girl just says, well, 2020 just got way more fucked. And she understood because it's not hard to understand. And that was the big thing that a lot of people took from today that were organizing with us, and the people that were there learning unintentionally, is that it takes a one-on-one interaction to change someone's mind. What we do here is to promote the community to be more active, to get involved, to be engaged, because censorship algorithms aren't allowing us to reach the external world, so to speak. So when you're out in these actions, please just remember, every interaction you have with someone, you are in a way representing Julian Assange to them as you talk about this. So make sure you use language that is comprehensible to that person. And that's not to say like assume everyone's stupid, but if it's someone that's slightly younger that wouldn't even know what the term extradition is, explain it without even having to use the word. If it's someone that comes up asking direct questions, be a little bit more in depth with them. Explain 4 or 5 other things that they probably haven't heard. Because every chance you get to change someone's mind or to reinforce the fact that this is wrong is a victory.
Yeah.
So going a little bit further into the kind of captive audience that we had. We were 2 staircases down from Abe in a nice little flat spot, like basically dead center. And we have this megaphone.
A beautiful megaphone. It's tremendous.
Believe me.
Thank you.
And thank you.
Yes.
But it like
Wow.
almost one out of a volume dial that tragically does not go to 11, but does go to 10. It was loud enough to where it echoed all across the front leading up towards the top of the Lincoln Memorial. And when it hit the back of the memorial, it bounced off of it and came back again. And all of these people throughout the day, like really seriously hundreds of people, were sitting and listening to Juan Pastorelli's documentary, or
The Teach-In
the
series.
Teach-In series. We put the vigil on with Benny and McGovern.
And also the vigil from Saturday with Rebecca Vincent.
Yeah. And because of the way that we had everything set up, it was really hard to tell that we weren't just sitting in the under the Easy Up interviewing people and doing this live. So it was just fascinating. It was. And the number of people that would come up and talk, like, and mention something about what they had heard when they were on the steps, pretty up there.
And there was at one point about 50 or 60 people in different groups. There were like groups of 2, groups of 5, groups of 7, groups of 3, scattered all across the stairs, sitting there, not talking to each other, not playing on their devices, but literally just listening and just comprehending information that they hadn't previously been exposed to because of the extreme levels of corruption within mainstream media. So thank you. Thank you for allowing us to do this. Thank you for believing in us enough to send us here. Because that's just 2 instances of today. There was another one, and
Oh, real quick.
Okay.
If I ever get the opportunity to do an interview with a puppy again, I am absolutely going to do that. And I would like to do that every single time. I think we need an interview puppy, but I'm not like, I can't get on a plane with a puppy dog. So I'm not going to suggest that I'm just in theory, interview puppy.
The puppy was great too. It was like, I mean, but everybody there today, you know, all the whole group, the whole A4A group, I mean, we all had so many positive interactions. I mean, it was like across the board. Of course, there's always a few negative ones, but that's okay. A lot of times that can be the opportunity for more. And like in some of those cases, other people around came up and talked to us, and we got to talk to them for a while. They're like, oh, that's really, you know, whatever, what's this about? You know, so it was really, it was an effective action. And one thing that I think was really neat about it too is it's something that you can do in your community. It's an effective small action to start, and it's nice to bring, you know, people come in because they're listening to some really intense stuff that they have not heard. You know, it's interesting, and it was excellent conversations. I mean, we did the yellow ribbons all up and down. You know, we went through 2 big spools of ribbon down the trees. And
Kimber got an amazing video of that too that she's going to be producing and putting out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think, is that about it?
Well, I want to talk for a second about, there was a Ecuadorian family that actually was there
right.
for Labor Day. And they came up and were immediately supportive, immediately knew who we were talking about and the general timeline of what was going on. But we had started talking specifically about the situation surrounding Lenin Moreno, Rafael Correa, the $4.2 billion loan, the revolution that was sparked within Ecuador as a result of it, and just explaining that the government of Ecuador, because of a $4.2 billion loan, sold Julian Assange to the United Kingdom. She literally started tearing up as I was explaining this. And it was one of the most emotional points of the day for me, because we talk a lot about what has happened because of WikiLeaks and how the world has changed to prosecute Julian. And this was a person that at the very least had family members that, because of that $4.2 billion loan, had to live through and are still living through the collapse of that state. And you could just see it in her face when you told her they illegally removed his citizenship and asylum, that it was like overwhelming at that point. And I'm really happy that we brought another signature flag. It's the same signature flag, we're just using the other side. And she did sign it and put her name on there. And a lot of people come up and ask for petitions and like, hey, what can I do? How can I help? And we give them great resources. We have tons of different information packets for literally people at different stages of understanding Julian's blight. And for her, it was really just that one piece of the puzzle that she was missing about how the US and the United Kingdom allowed Julian to be sold for this amount and then brought a nation into chaos because of it, because of the austerity of having to pay this loan back. Because it's not an immediate transfer. It's not, you get $4.2 billion, you do some shit with it, and you give 4.2 back. When that loan came in, the people of Ecuador suffered tremendous increases in taxes and austerity. And that's what led them into the streets. And during that time, I believe, because we had Jose Riviera on talking about it, there was literal snipers on rooftops, military snipers on rooftops, killing people in the streets indiscriminately. And you could see that in her without even having to say that those events happened. And that, it was powerful, and it gave me, at least personally, a different way of looking at this situation, because a lot of it is analytical. We try to remember everything that happened in a specific order and time. We try to get rid of the propaganda and disinformation to get everything correct. And then you're faced with someone who felt the consequences of the information that you have, and it's powerful.
It is powerful.
I, on the other hand, got distracted by what may have been a federal agent who was dressed up like Abraham Lincoln.
That did happen.
That totally happened. Yeah.
We gonna go over Kevin's article?
Yeah, we could.
It's just really small print.
I'm just gonna pass this real quick.
Seat swaps.
It's musical hosts.
Do you have it up, Josh?
Yes.
So this is basically recapping what Tarek said, but there's some more detail, and it is definitely worth discussing. Let's jump down to
Yeah, hit Control Plus if you want the text bigger.
well, I'm trying to look for a spot here. Here we go. Mark Summers, a lawyer for Assange, referred to the two general allegations, count one, which involves an alleged conspiracy to release, quote, national defense information, end quote, and count two, which is an alleged conspiracy to commit computer intrusions under the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. By adding new material, prosecutors believe they can extradite Assange even if they do not convince the court that publishing disclosures from PFC Chelsea Manning was a criminal act. The defense focused on the fact that multiple alleged co-conspirators of Assange, when it comes to the hacking elements, were the subject of trials in the U.S. and the U.K. a decade ago. Siggy Thordarson, who is the teenager in the third indictment, was mentioned by the prosecution in a filing in 2019, so they could have included any material from Thordarson in the previous indictment. As the defense noted, Thordarson was convicted in Iceland of fraud, theft, and the impersonation of Julian Assange. He also sold merchandise through a WikiLeaks store without authorization and embezzled 50 grand. Omitted from this article, but also part of the public record, Siggy is also a convicted pedophile and a certified sociopath, and FBI informant. So
That's a great cocktail.
yeah, high caliber witness. The Icelandic Interior Minister of the time is reported to have ordered a number of FBI prosecutors who had arrived in Iceland to investigate the teenager's claims to leave Iceland. That is correct. The Icelandic Interior Minister ordered the FBI the hell out of Iceland, and that is awesome. The Interior Minister made statements at the time and has made statements since that he believed the investigation was in order to frame Assange, the defense stated in their argument. Prosecutors entirely omitted the fact that the alleged co-conspirators Sabu, Hector Xavier Munsinger, Topiary, Jake Davis, and Kayla Ryan Aykroyd, really Aykroyd, neat, were prosecuted before the Southwark Crown Court in the UK for their alleged involvement with Lulzsec in hacking. Have we dropped this link into the chat, Josh?
Yeah, I just did.
Right on. And then, yeah, this is basically just recapping the fact that the defense put forth an argument about it, and once again, concierge of the U.S. State Department, Vanessa Breitzer, come back in. Yeah. Was like, yeah, no, fuck you. We are playing musical hosts.
Sorry, guys.
I'm in the middle now.
But yeah, is there anything else you wanted to talk about? So tomorrow, we are going to be in front of the Washington Post, and then we will be across the street from the Washington Post in Lincoln Park.
Park
right?
police permitting.
Park
Because
police permitting.
in Washington, D.C., just so everyone in the audience understands, we did pull permits for most of these. Most of the alerts did get put out properly. Anywhere you choose to demonstrate on DC property, federal or otherwise, if you have less than 25 people from your organization there and present, you do not need a permit, period, for anything, whether it's a march, a demonstration, anything like that. If the police follow their own rules, you are allowed to be there. We did pull permits for most of it. We've been in contact with the DC Metro Police just with everything throughout this. So the Washington Post tomorrow should be a lot of fun. We're going to have basically the same kind of setup. And I'm sure that we have a wonderful list to go through once again of videos that we're going to be watching. Depending on who shows up tomorrow, we may do a live vigil outside of the Washington Post, just depending on what special guests we have arrive.
And what kind of reception we have.
Yes. We were joined today by Ian Schlackman.
Oh yeah, and Franco from
Yeah.
Frank Analysis. He came
Yeah.
out. He and he said he'll be back and he wants to do some live streaming from a location of an event. So shout out to that kid, man. Like he's solid. And yeah, the brother Ian came out.
What are
Real quick, on Thursday, I get to go see Reverend Annie, and I get to give her a hug, and that's going to be awesome. And that's all there is to that.
who are other content creators in Washington, D.C.?
Well, there are lots of them that are like in the area that could easily make it to DC.
Come.
So of course, there's your good buddy Tim Black.
Yep.
There's my good buddy Jamarl Thomas.
Shanahan,
Yeah,
Garland,
Garland Nixon.
Crystal Ball.
Yeah,
It'd be great
I'm
to
pretty
see
sure
as many
Max
people out
Blumenthal
as
lives here.
possible. Yeah, it'd be great to see everybody come out,
Uh.
especially right now.
And if whoever you follow has not covered this case today, unfollow. There is not time left.
Kyle fucking Kulinski could do 3 minutes about this.
I think he might have. recently.
No, I mean that he did. I saw Misty say something about it, and I will believe her.
Mhm.
So look at the people you follow and look at what they've covered today. Because if it is not breathlessly Julian Assange, because they did not organize on the ground protests, consider unfollowing and pulling support. I don't like taking that position and being aggressive, but there's not time left to get content creators and independent journalists to our side. There are sides. And there are those who will speak out, and there are those who won't. And if you won't speak out, why do you have a platform?
We know what side you're on.
But also, you like, and for me, you know, make them block you instead and say, hey, why aren't you, you know, cover this? Like, we really need to cover this. You know, really stress to people, hey, the free press goes with the extradition. There is not time. These are like special administrative measures, even with the appeal, everything like that. There's not time. It's the punishment, you know, the process is the punishment. So
Who
that's
did we
like,
go through Sam's with?
really have to push that.
A lot of people. We did Sam's with for 3 or 4 different vigils.
Yeah.
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 But hopefully people, you know, I mean, I've had some success even just saying, like, you know, in the polite way, like, hey, really need you to cover it. And we'd appreciate your support too, saying, hey, why don't you join A4A in DC at their actions? Here's the schedule.
There were a bunch of people who participated in pushing the MPP folks to actually say something about Julian Assange, and they did. We'll see what happens with that, but you guys are
MPP
really
put out some
effective.
shit. They
Yeah,
did. I was shocked.
Like, never doubt for a moment that you aren't effective. You are. You guys are a fucking force.
Brutally. Because there is no one else that has organized themselves in such a way to do this. If you look at the way other people make videos and get their audience to respond, they don't ask their audience to take a stand. And when they do, it's generally in passing or by asking for donations. So to circle back before we wrap up, we are putting out a new call to action every single day. If you have found a content creator that did not release content about Julian Assange today, email us, info@actionforassange.com, because we would love to have a group conversation with them about why it's so important.
That's fair.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I'm Andrew Smith. You can find me on Twitter at Andrew Zigmund, Zigmund. I want to give a special thank you to Ian for stopping out today, for everybody in the audience that has helped make this possible. If you look at our number, we have less than 3,000 subscribers according to YouTube, and you guys, through your relentless efforts and self-sacrifice and work, have helped us raise over $11,000 to come here and do this. And that is ranging anywhere from 7 to 10 people, depending on the day, to DC for 3 weeks. And that's basically housing, basically sort of food. Wonderful. But yeah, thank you.
The truck.
The truck.
Oh yeah, the truck. Oh yeah, this
truck.
So when one of the
We're
A4A team, yeah,
There's
when
too much going on.
Pluseal on Twitter, she did a separate crowdfunding event to get the WikiLeaks truck that we had back in February back up here, and was able to just crush it. And when the driver of the truck showed up today, he was like, oh, hey, when they printed the signage for the truck, they printed an extra back panel, and here you go. And this thing is massive.
So she has donated and given most of the banner and signage, large signage, the flags that we have, and all of that.
We're taking care of them, Paula.
Yes. And we are going to be giving this to her as a thank you, and to add to the collection of WikiLeaks banners and signs that she has, because her work and her help and her effort in February was phenomenal. And we just want to say thank you for that, but also for all that she did in helping us to get here, and helping get the truck here, but also in making sure that those banners and flags and all of the necessary material to hold them got here as well. So a big special thank you to her, and we look forward to being able to mail this back to her.
And I'm Kendra Christian, and you can find me on Twitter at edubs13. And we have Denver Free Assange, and you can find us at DNB Free JA. I just want to say thank you to everybody for all their tireless work last night. It was a long night. A lot of people put in good hours, and it was a great action today. And hi to everybody in the chat, and see you guys soon.
I'm Steve Boykin, I host a show called Slow News Day. You can find it on YouTube by typing Slow News Day Podcast into your search bar. I'm also on the Rockfin, Indie Live, and so is Action for Assange. Thank you very, 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 Rob. Very, 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 very much.
And real quick, just so everyone knows, whatever.
You owe Misty some jazz hands too.
That's why I picked it back up. But whatever's left from the GoFundMe, when we are leaving DC, we'll be going to multiple different WikiLeaks support groups, whether it's Courage Foundation, whether it's Stella Morris's campaign, whether it's defend.wikileaks. We will be sending whatever is left divided proportionally to multiple different groups that are doing amazing work and could use a boost in support. Thank you.
Yeah, and
if you like what you see, you can find us on Twitter at action_4 Assange.
Oh man.
Holy fuck, good luck to us all.